Hello there and welcome to this vlog of March 2023. Before I get into today's video, just a little bit of housekeeping. So this video is slightly later than expected. That's because the local gas company have decided to dig up my road. So every time I've been sitting down to record, big digger comes along and starts smashing things up, which is literally 10 meters in this direction, and then all you'd hear is horrible grinding machinery noise, which some may say is better than my voice, but certainly not conducive to good YouTube content. So and between that and me working in the office a lot recently, because I now have an office within 10 miles of my house, so that's nice. I'm not working remotely anymore. So my kind of recording schedule is slightly skewed because of those two things. So I think to that end, what I'll do is I'll probably just bin my usual Friday schedule for the next 3 weeks until April, and I'll just put videos out as and when I can do them. You probably will get more content because of that, though, because of the Kickstarter that's going to release in it's under 2 weeks now. Wow, yeah, 10 days actually. 23rd of March that goes live. So I'm sure that, knowing how I am and I do like a good news video, then I will probably just do that as and when I get around to doing it. We're also going to be doing that on Death from Above, I believe. Also, Aaron, Tom and I discussed the other day about recording some content on the Kickstarter. Now Aaron and Chris and Dan are all going to Adepticon in Chicago, so that won't be something that comes out immediately because they won't be able to record it. They're going to have to go back to Pennsylvania to do that. So yeah, you'll see plenty of content anyway. It's just the schedule might be thrown off. Anyway, housekeeping over, let's get into today's video. Been meaning to do this for a while because I want to discuss the Ost-Series of mechs, of which there are 4. Now, this is kind of timely because obviously the Kickstarter is coming up, as I say, in 10 days, and they're releasing 3 of the 4 mechs in the new plastics, which I'm personally delighted about because I have a real soft spot in my heart for the Ost-Series. Now, one thing that slightly irked me is that one of these Ost-Series mechs has been omitted. I don't know why. In fact, no, I probably do know why, because it doesn't have as many variants as the other 3, and I think it's a bit of a mech that was lost to time, so maybe they just decided, we'll just leave that one out. For me, though, that's slightly annoying, because I like the completionist aspect of having an Ost-Series lance, and we can't do that with the new plastics. Believe there is an Ost War, that's the one they're omitting. Spoilers, we'll talk about that when we get to it. Believe there is an Ost War metal model, but you can't get it through Relpatha in the UK. And I refuse to use 3D printed models, so yeah, the lance will have to go waiting, I'm afraid, until I can find a work around that, because I would like the Ost-Series as a lance. Anyway, let's have a little bit of a chat about Ostman Industries, the good people who created the Ost-Series for us. They were originally, I believe, and this is just from memory, I really should have made some notes on this, but I think I know it well enough. They were a weapons manufacturer who started delving into creating mechs. The Ost-Series is what they are famous for. Obviously, it's the name that they took, or that they gave from their company. They're also, interestingly, I believe they then licensed some of these mechs out. I think it was 2 mechs. I think it was the Ost-Scout and the Ost-Sol, I think, were licensed out to Kong Industries, who are one of the big famous BattleTech mech factories. So yeah, it's they're an interesting mech. You don't get companies doing that very often. You'll get a mech factory or a big industry or something like that will just create a mech for, I don't know, the Capellans or something like that, or the Capellans might commission it or something of that nature, and then they just give it a very cool sounding name. If it's the Capellans, it's the Vindicator, something like that. The Ost-Series, though, is just very derpy. Just stick Ost in front of a word and then you have it. That's why I like it so much. The mechs as well, and I'm not going to show them off here, You can obviously go and see that in the TROs or Sana, or there's plenty of imagery online. But the mechs themselves look quite quirky, so I quite like that, especially the first mech that we're going to talk about here. So let's get right into it then, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to run I'm going to show the original variant of the mech. In this case here, this is the Ost-Scout, and then I'll show one of the upgrades that occur in and around the the Fedcom Civil War going into the Jihad era. And I'll show that just in terms of like how much these mechs can improve when you give them things like double heat sinks. So you might even, like, the Ost-Scout is the famous one, like the 7J variant that we're going to talk about in a second is not very good at all, but it does have a mech variant that eventually becomes really quite strong. So I'll do it that way. So it's going to be 2 for each Ost-Series. Keep in mind as well, there are plenty of variants for like the Ost-Scout, but obviously I'm not going to talk about them all because I'd be here all day. So, and I don't know when the digging's going to start, so I certainly can't do that because it might start over the next hour. Anyway, for that reason, let's get into it. So the Ost-Scout, mech created in 2600, so it's a relatively early-ish mech. 35 tonner, which is very odd. We'll talk about that when we get into its loadout, though. In terms of its strength, obviously, because it has quite a lot of negatives, but its strength is 100% its movement, which you'd kind of expect from a mech called the Ost-Scout. You would want a mech that can move very quickly. This can, in fact, I think when you're getting up into the Succession Wars, this will probably be the fastest mech around, I'd imagine. Walks at 8, runs at 12, jumps at 8. I mean, that's really like a really fast clan light mech, especially with those jump jets. Like, it's incredibly maneuverable. It can really kind of get around the battlefield. You can see straight away where the problems are, though, and this is for a 35 tonner, and 35 ton light mechs are usually well known for having really good like levels of weaponry, things like a Jenna, for instance, or a Panther. You know, like a Panther has a PPC, Jenna has 4 medium lasers and an SRM4. The Ost-Scout, though, God bless his little heart, has 1 solitary M laser. Yeah, not good. So can do 5 points of damage. I mean, the argument, to then suggest is, well, it's not meant as a damage dealer. It's just meant there to spot for artillery and like indirect LRM fire, cause a nuisance to itself, go on objective hold, and it can do all those things completely fine. Well, very, very well, actually. But the counter to that is, if you get in any trouble with it, it can't fire its way out of there. And its armour, I mean, the armour's okay. You're coming in at, like, I'm just looking at the side torsos there, which is kind of how I always judge armour. Because that's the bit that, if it gets hit, it's going to take an arm off as well. Doesn't really matter for the Ost-Scout, though, because its solitary M laser is on its centre torso. So if that goes boom, the mech goes boom, basically. Because, the centre torso is going to be blown up, and that kills the mech. But for the purposes of this, it's got 9 points of armour on each torso, and then 8 points of structure on each torso. So, it's not great. It's not going to last too long against like a decent medium mech. But you have to hit it first, and hitting it is difficult because it's very, very quick. Especially, again, in the Succession Wars era, I can see a sort of use for this. I suppose one thing to point on here is the heat management. It's a +1 mech for heat management. That means that if you jump the full 8 and then use the M laser, you generate 11 heat, and then it sinks 10. If you're not jumping though, if you're just scuttling around the board, running or walking, it runs cool, does this mech, so that's very good. One thing I do like about this mech as well is the placement of the jump jets. You can see the jump jets are there all in the side torso. That's really useful. That means that if you get any crits, they don't naturally just go into the centre torso. That gives it quite a bit more durability. What I may have wanted to see, if I was going to really like mid-max this mech, I probably would have put a couple of jump jets in the legs as well. So 2 on the left leg, 2 on the left torso, 2 on the right torso, 2 on the right leg. That's because if this mech gets any actuator hits, it's in a lot of trouble because it won't be able to run. I mean, you could say it can still jump, but I think I'd want to try and keep the legs as healthy as possible and away from crits. And obviously, if you get jump jets in the legs, they can swallow up those like crits or those, the critical spaces, which, the crits will then, or critical damage will then destroy. But, again, that's a real minor nitpick. I think this mech is, for what is on the mech, it's about as well designed as you can get. Again, my argument there on the jump jets in the legs is probably a debatable point. Like, someone could say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Actually, they're better in the torso. So that is a real nitpick from me. But yeah, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I didn't check the battle value out beforehand, but I believe, just off memory, I think it's like 550 or something like that. That makes it really expensive for what this mech does. Like, you'd be far better just getting like a 150, 250 battle value vehicle that can fulfill a very same role. So again, unless you've got some kind of objective where you're having to jump up a hill and a vehicle can't necessarily do that, if there's like a cliff face or a building or something like that, it really is a bit of a mech is the Ost-Scout. So not a strong start for the old Ost-Series, but I like that it exists because it fulfills like a real specific battlefield like criteria. Right, moving on, let's have a look at the upgrade of the Ost-Scout, which is the OTT 9CS. Now, you'll note that has a C in the description there, which basically is like shorthand for it's got a C3 system on there, which this does. This mech is, so this is a 3064 mech, has exactly the same movement profile, but the big thing that this mech does, two big things this mech does, it puts an XL engine in there and it puts endo steel structure on there, which basically give it a lot more tonnage to play around with. So not only can you get that, those 8 jump jets in there comfortably, you are also able to get 2 ER-M lasers, which are great weapons, an ER small laser, which is a not so great weapon, or the inner sphere variant isn't. But then it's like equipped up to the hilt with electronics. So you've got the tag in there, great for artillery stuff. That the Guardian ECM, a Beagle active probe, and you've got C3. Now, this is one of those mechs that really kind of ramps up in terms of what it can do for you. They're not in regards its original role. So you can use this. Forget about the weaponry for a second, because at a push it can look after itself a little bit more actually with those ER-M lasers. It's something, if you've got those two, people are going to be slightly more wary at coming at you, regardless if you just got one medium laser, like regular medium laser. But this mech, it has, first of all, it has better armor on there. So I'm just looking at the torsos. It's got like a couple more points of armor there. Structure's still the same, but it's slightly better armored than the 7J variant. The one thing that lets this mech down quite badly is its heat management, but even then I'd say that's fine. Reason why I say that's fine is because if you want to use this mech for how it should be used, you're going to be jumping around tagging objectives or mechs or vehicles or whatever, and then using that C3 to get the advantage for the other mechs in the network. So it's not like you're going to have to jump in, which with this guy's 8 heat. So 8 heat, and then plus the 2 M lasers, that's another 10. So you're generating like 18 heat on that. Sorry, generating 18 heat, but you sink 10, so it's a plus 8. So that's not really viable. But my argument would be you'd never bother shooting with this thing anyway, not unless you were kind of backed into a corner, and then the 2 ER-M lasers are just like your get out, like, okay, I'm just going to run past this opponent and shoot at them on the way out and just hope and pray that I survive, that kind of thing. I don't see it really as a viable attacking mech, but real massive upgrade. I think if you're going to be really panicky about it, you'd say, why didn't you put double heat sinks in there? Then you could use it as an attacking mech as well. Yep, fair point. That really does let this mech down to some extent. But I think if you look at what the previous version, the original version, the 7J wants to do, this mech does it way better, and it's got tag and ECM and active probe. And if you're running this in a C3 network, amazing. Like, you could literally just use these as almost like kamikaze mechs. So you could get a couple of them in like a C3 company, just run them like right up to mech, just knowing that they're going to die, basically. But you get the added advantage of then getting the short range like bonus to all the mechs back in the long range, because that's what C3 network does. I'm not going to go into that now. That's a discussion for another day, and I think other YouTube channels have done that really well already, and podcasts as well. So yeah, probably no point in me doing it. But the C3 network, if you are using it, I would, and you're playing in like the Fedcom Civil War era and beyond, yeah, the 9CS is a version to look for, especially like in regard to the new model that's coming out for the Ost-Scout. I think this is the one that you should think about playing, or like, you know, proxying to reflect the equipment that this mech has, because the new Kickstarter is around that era. So the new Kickstarter is very much like post-Clan Invasion now. So, you know, I mean, I don't know for sure. It might be this version that's that's in the Kickstarter. I kind of hope it is, because the original Ost Rock is not very good, though. I suppose it doesn't really matter. Like, you can use like the same model and just say that it's a 9CS. I'm a little bit finicky on that. Like, I do like it to reflect the mechs that I use, but you can proxy this really easily, because both the M lasers are on the arms, so you just put a few gun barrels on the arms, and you're pretty much ready to go with this little chap. Right, so that's the Ost-Scout. So he's interesting. Let's now move up to the real talent within the Ost-Series. So the Ost-Sol. Not just this, the Ost-Rock and the Ost-War are decent in their own right as well, but we'll talk about them all, go into detail on them all. These three mechs, they're all heavy mechs. The Ost-Sol, though, is a 60-tonner, 2694, so 94 years after the Ost-Scout, I believe. I think that's 2600, so it's... it only took them over 94 years to get the Ost-Sol out there. First thing I note about this mech is it's really quite quick for a 60-tonner, so it's a 5.8. Reminds me quite a bit of a Dragon, but it's significantly, I think, more efficient than a Dragon, because it doesn't have the AC5 or the LRM10 ammo on there. It does have problems, though. We'll get into that. But I do like the Ost-Sol for what it is. This is the original variant, the 4D. Again, so in this area, as you then getting into the succession wars as well, having a 5.8 60-tonner with that kind of level of armour is really quite useful. I know people are really down on the Dragon. I'm not. I've spoken about this recently. I did a video several weeks ago on the upgraded versions of the Dragons are actually really quite useful. They're not as bad as people think. So weapon loadout here, we've got 2 L lasers, we've got 2 front-facing M lasers and 2 rear-facing M lasers. Never like the rear-facing M lasers, to be frank. Actually, I don't mind them on mechs that are 3.5 for movement profile. I think they can be quite useful, because it discourages light mechs getting into your rear arc. But I'm looking at this chap, he's a 5.8. Does he need rear? No, he doesn't. The one thing it does kind of assist on is heat, because generally speaking, you're only going to be firing the 2 L lasers and the 2 M lasers. That generates a total of 22 heat. I think my maths is awful, but I think it's 22. And then you get 16 heat sinks. So that's a +6, which is just on the wrong side of bad. Not too bad, but just on the wrong side. In terms of its crit structure, the one thing I do like, I mentioned this before, it's got the 2 heat sinks in the left leg and the right leg there. That I like, especially for a mech that is reliant on its speed to do its work. It's good as well. I mean, this is, there's a symmetry to this mech, as I think there was with the Ost-Scout 7J as well. So maybe that's a theme with the Ost-Series. We'll see as we go on. I'm not sure about the other crit placements on the other 2 mechs. But that's nice. Having that 3 points there in the left torso and the right torso mean that those weapons will swallow up any damage before it gets into your centre torso. Especially if you're using the floating crit rule, which I tend to use. So that's That I like. You know, I'd be we're having a very different conversation now if it was just all roll agains here, because that means any crit going through would go right to the centre torso, which is brutal. But yeah, I think this mech is like, for that, you know, not for the Star League as such, but certainly like running up into the Succession Wars, very useful mech. Solid levels of armour, it's quick, you know, it can look after itself. Yeah, I'm a fan. I do like the Osso. Um, it's very average, but that's good. You know, like fine. Battle value won't be too much. Doesn't have jump jets on there as well, so that'll keep the battle value down. No ammo. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Let's have a look at its upgrade. So this is the Ost-Sol OTL Mark 8M. This mech, I'm going to say here, personally, this is my favourite mech in the entire Ost-Series. This is a 3066 mech, so again, Fedcom Civil War going into the like the Jihad era. This mech has a real special function, much like the Oscar 9 SC had the C3 system. This has a little magic of its own, which is the triple strength myoma. Just had to remember that. I'd not written it down anywhere, and it doesn't tell you anywhere on here. So yeah, that's what it is. We'll just call it triple strength from here on out. What triple strength does is, you see there's a little tag here on the heat. When we touch, oh, there you are. It now appears. Triple strength myoma. Yeah, there we are. Oh, it does tell you. Sorry, I'm blind. It's on there. Anyway, we'll keep that on. So when you generate 9 points of heat, you basically get a bounty on movement. So walk profile now goes to 7, run goes to 11. But then you get double for your punches and kicks damage, which can be absolutely devastating. Love triple strength myoma. It's a wonderful like design. Capellan, obviously. I love it as well, like with triple strength, you never need to really think about your heat management because you want the mech to get hot. It's a full like pulse and laser system as well. So, and you've got a PPC on there. Important to note, it's a regular PPC. It's not an Innosphere ER PPC, and I actually prefer the regular PPCs to the Innosphere ER PPCs because they generate less heat. So it's 5 less heat. That's counterintuitive to what I'm saying here, because you want to generate heat, but your other weapons cover that completely as well. Now, this really important point on this also, because it's got that Excel engine in there and an upgrade, it's naturally a 6.9. So for a 60 tonner, it's hella quick. You know, it's as quick as a Lancelot, Star League Lancelot, which is also a 6.9. And if you ever rocked that Lancelot, you'll know how powerful that is. Basically the Star League version of the Lancelot. Yeah, I think 60 tonners that can go 6.9, they've got a real special place for me. This is even better though, because it's got that triple strength. It gets up to a 7.11 if it's running fast, more than 9 heat. This one isn't symmetric, so that burns away that theory. But this is a later one, so it's very difficult to do that with these mechs. But it's got great placement of its like crit slots here. Obviously, one of the issues, exo engines are always a real like bone of contention with a lot of people, because if you destroy 3 points of an engine, you destroy the mech, and it's really easy just to get that like left or right torso wiped out, and that basically kills your machine. Although it's well armored, 24 points of armor and 14 points of structure on the torsos there. So yeah, I think it's fine, for what it is. There's no ammo on there either, so I really like the Osso. It's a really, really good mech. That weapon loadout, though, is really nice. I know a lot of people don't like the pulse weaponry from the Innosphere. I personally don't mind it. I especially don't mind it on a mech that is this fast, because it will be able to really kind of get up close and personal to most mechs. I do see this mech as a bit of a hunter-killer for mediums and lights. Because it will match, if not better, in terms of speed. So maybe not necessarily light mechs, but certainly medium mechs. So you can like get up close and personal and start dealing a lot of damage with that pulse weaponry. Obviously, the payoff of the pulse weaponry is you get the -2 to hit. But the negative side is for the Innosphere medium pluses, the range is awful. It's a 246, which is just slightly above machine gun level of awful. You do though, I will caveat that by saying you do have 2 long range weapons on there. So you have the ER, one long range weapon, one above medium range weapons. That's the PPC and the ERM laser. So this mech can really do like a jack of all trade function. You can run it as a tank, you can run it as a skirmisher. Personally, I would completely play this mech as a brawler because of that triple strength factor. So get your heat up while you're running in there, and then just get in and start kicking and punching the opposition with that ridiculous like bonus that you get to doing damage. So yeah, big fan of this mech. Certainly, I think for me the best mech that I'm going to show here today. Right, next up we have got the Ost-Rock. This is the first, I believe, in this. Yes, it is the first in. Maybe I can't remember the Ost-War's date actually, but it's the earliest one we've seen thus far. It's a 2.511. So again, another weird one. It's like nearly 90 years between this and the Ost-Scout. Slightly odd. It's a 5.8. So again, at the time it was made, it was fast. Then obviously the Star League, these mechs become obsolete, and then you get into the Succession Wars, and this then is seen as a good mech. It's a 60 tonner that's got a 5.8 profile. Big fan of that. Again, like the Ost Sol, it's got really decent levels of armor for a 60 tonner. Weapon loadout is, again, it's not a million miles away from the Ost Sol. It's got one major difference though. It swaps out the two rear facing weapons with an SRM4. That's obviously better. I think, I don't think there's any argument to be made that out of all the original series of the three we've discussed thus far, this is the best. 2L lasers, 2M lasers and SRM4 with 15 heat management is really nice. All you basically have to do there is stop firing like one of the L lasers. It can run hot, but that's going to happen when you've got 15 heat sinks against that weapon loadout. But it's not difficult to manage, is what I'm trying to get at. You just, if you're from range, you fire your 2L lasers, while you're walking, that generates 1 point of heat. Oh, sorry, the 2 points of heat. Or you've got your, you're going a bit closer in, so then you just drop to firing 1L laser, the 2M lasers, and the SRM4. Again, you'll run a little bit hot with that, but as long as you manage it, you're absolutely fine. Nearly a symmetric mech, if not for the SRM4 there. So yeah, never mind. Has got a point of ammo, but it's on the centre torso. I actually prefer that in these kind of like early mechs because it's much harder to get into the centre torso. And I know that the argument would be like, as soon as you get into the centre torso in terms of crits, the mech is on its last legs anyway because you're going to do gyro and fusion engine hits. But important, you've only got like what's that, like a 1 in 11 chance of hitting the ammo there and basically coring the mech out. So I'd actually prefer it there, I think, than on certainly on the torsos with this mech, because you've only got those 3 slots on the left torso and the 4 slots on the right torso. So yeah, I think this is genuinely the best designed of the mechs that we've seen thus far from those like original variants. Yeah, just good. Just really, really solid. When you get into the Succession Wars as well, you could do absolutely worse than having these like Ost-Series mechs in a lance. They'd be really quite powerful there, I think. Let's have a look at the upgrade then. So this is the Ost-Rock, the OSR Mark II-D. Not much to say about this one because it literally is just like an upgrade of the previous one. This is a clan invasion mech, so 3050. So just as the clans are invading, it basically upgrades to double heat sinks, which is nice, obviously, especially for a mech that's got all that laser weaponry on there and that generates a lot of heat. 2 ERL lasers, which I personally really like. 2 regular M lasers, which is fine as well. Like you want to get up close and personal with this mech, and an SRM4. But you've got 30 points of heat management here, which is chef's kiss, amazing. So that gives you, pretty much you're running at a +3 in terms of its alpha strike capacity here. That's fantastic. So all you have to do is drop out 1 M laser. You stay stationary, find some trees to sit in, that's where your opponent's in and around you, and you can do a lot of damage with this mech, and it's got decent levels of armour as well. In terms of crits, I would say... Yeah, so just in case you've ever never seen this or never thought about it, unfortunately you can't get an Innosphere double heat sink on a leg. You can with a clan double heat sink because they only take up 2 points of critical slot here. So you can get, clans often do that as well. You put one cheeky double clan heatsink in the leg, and that really means that it gives you a better chance of survival because your legs or your actuators on your legs and your hip have got less chance of getting hit on criticals. You can't do that though, unfortunately, with Innisphere heatsinks because they take up 3 points. But where they've put them is the best place, which is in the left and right torso. So it takes up a lot there. So it's good for like again for taking those crits. Again, wonderful ammos on the centre torso, though. Again, that's probably at this area you'd probably say, and I think Case did come back at this point, but this is very very early in the clan invasion era directly. So not sure if the Innisphere have Case. I think they do reintroduce it, but I don't know if it kind of gets rolled out to many mechs. Obviously, it doesn't get rocked out to the Ostrock. If it did, they would have moved the ammo to the torso and they would have put Case in the torso, which is always the better option, obviously, especially with mechs like this that don't have an XL engine. They've got a regular old Fusion engine. Testament to how good this mech is, really, because it's still able to upgrade things like the double heat sinks, but it's still been able to retain its original speed. It keeps the 5.8. Yeah. Again, big fan of this mech. I think the Ostrock is the standout performer, really. Although I love the Ost-Salt as well. I think they work quite well in tandem with each other because they're both quite similar. But big fan of both. But not much more to say about this one because it basically is just the upgrade from that 2C variant. Now, finally, we have got the smaller brother. Even though it's the biggest mech, but it's a small brother because it's not getting a new plastic and it doesn't have much love attached to it. This is the Ost-War. It's kind of the forgotten brother of the series. It's a 65 tonner. Still slightly irksome that they're not releasing the plastic. I'm not going to lie, I was slightly disappointed when I saw that, but hey ho. Let's go through this loadout. Anyway, I think you can probably see why it's not as popular as the others because of the ammo factor, which we'll get into shortly. But again, I mean, it is... actually, just looking at that, it is the first of the Ost-Series as well. So 2470, so very, very early mech this. It's slow, so that's the first thing to point out. For a 65 tonner, it's a 3.5. But I suppose the argument to suggest is that it's a bit of a missile boat when it's got that LRM-20 in there, so you don't necessarily need it to be very fast. Weapon loadouts, it's got one LRM-20, two M-lasers and two SRM-4s. I'm not a fan with putting big LRM packs on there with SRM packs. I think it doesn't have the synergy that you need to make a mech work. I either want a catapult-esque build where you've got say two LRM-15s and then four M lasers where you can kind of spam missile attacks and then run in with those four lasers when you've either run out of ammo or you need to get up close and personal and capture objectives or whatever. This mech is not quick enough to do that. It's not jump capable enough to get around the battlefield. It can't really act how it wants to act. Another point, the armor on this mech isn't great. You see, it has less armor than the Ostrock and the Ost-Sol. 21 points on the torso there. It's also, I think this is, we've got here primitive armor. I don't even know what that means, to be honest. I don't know if that just weighs more. There might be another variant of this as well. I'm not sure. I only saw 3. Let's just have a quick look, actually, see if there is another variant on the Ost-War. No, I mean, it's the Star League era version now, which is like a specialised version, which yeah, that'll be amazing. It'll have double heat sinks and all kind of amazing stuff in there. But it's not. Yeah, I mean that's a Star League mech, right? So it's amazing. So we can't use that one. So we're gonna have to go for the old primitive armor version here. It's not popular, obviously, because of all the ammo there. Now, its massive problem that it's got here is it puts those 2 ammo points in the right torso. So if you roll a 4 or a 6 when you get a crit, mech go bye-bye. So yeah, it's a mech that you can have a lot of fun playing with this mech, and I'd love to play it in an Ost Lance. You keep it back and just use the LRM-20. Basically, that's what you do. And then if you get your objectives and you've kind of cut a road through, you'd bring the Ostrock up to, the Ost-War then to kind of act to support with those 2 M lasers and SRM-4s and dump the LRM ammo. So I think it is a completely functional mech. You can use it. Again, it puts the heat sinks there. The two solitary singles that it's got outside the... Oh, sorry, three. It's got one in the centre torso as well. It puts them in the legs, which it really doesn't need because it's such a slow mech anyway, it doesn't matter. So you would have been far better putting the heat sinks there in the right torso to try and pad out where the ammo is. So absolutely not a very well designed mech. Obviously, it's the first in the Ost-Series, so they got better at it because, as we saw, the Ostrock and the Ostsol really, even the Ost-Scout actually is quite well designed mechs for what they are. And they've got really good like critical placement. But yeah, I think out of all of them, this is by far the worst. You saw as well when we kind of looked at the other variants, there were only three, one of which we're going to look at in a second as well, which I think will be a mass improvement on this one. So let's have a look at that. This is the OWR3M, so this is from 3075, so it's a Jihad version mech. This is yes, better, right? Better, but you've still got a bit of an issue with the ammo placement. Oh, this time you do have case, and you've only got a fusion engine, so that's actually mitigates it quite a bit. But let's have a look at this mech. First point to note is big point. It's had a fusion engine upgrade, so it's a 4.6 now, so it's quick. Not quick, it's quicker. 65 tonner. It's got better levels of armor there, so that's nice. LRM 20 plus Artemis is always good. I think in this era, though, obviously so many things can counter Artemis that, you know, it's probably a little bit redundant on mechs in 3075, but it's still fine. It's got two ERM lasers, two Streak SRM4s, which is nice, and a Guardian ECM as well, which is always welcome, I think, to a mech. Lots of nice heat management on there as well, so it does 24 heat sinking with those double heat sinks, so doesn't run cool, that does it? So we got 10, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yes, it runs cool. So that's very, very good. Nice Guardian ECM placement as well. Just, you know, you get a little bit of a chance there of hitting the ECM as opposed to the fusion engine or the gyro. 1 in 6 chance of protecting. So I quite like that as well. What else have we got on here? We've got... ammo placement's fine. I mean, the left side's absolutely fine because you've got 1 point of ammo, which is in a really padded out area anyway. But then on the right torso, that's what you've got to be careful of. In fact, what I'd say on this is use it similar to its predecessor. So fire off those LRM 20s to support if you're playing in an Ost-Series lance, which is something I'd love to do. You just keep this back on the line. So get the Ost-Scout up and running and spotting for this LRM 20 and get your other two to do the work. Get the Ost-Sol and the Ostrock to do the centre work. And then if you can get positionals at that point, then you can run the Ostwar up and it can just drop out its LRM 20 ammo, and it just then in this case it's got two ERM lasers, two Streak SRM4s, and you've got the Guardian ECM to protect your other mechs from whatever you're needing to use the Guardian ECM for. That's quite useful. So yeah, like this upgrade actually. I think it's a perfectly, especially with that heat management, that makes this mech really quite nice. Yeah, I love the Ost-Series. They're great. I just don't know why we're not getting the Ostwar. I mean, you maybe can see why. Again, we go back to the 2M. It's such a primitive version, and they never upgraded it apart from that really amazing Star League version mech, which is slightly annoying because if you're playing Succession Wars, you'd be really cheeky to run that mech. You know, I mean, let's just have a look at it quickly because it's a beast. What's it? The 2MB. Yeah, 3 ER L lasers, 2 SRM 6s. Yeah, that's nice. It's like a Thug almost, and it's 65 tonner. I mean, the Thug obviously has the 2 PPCs and the 2 SRM 6s. 36 heat management though, that is lovely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, even that with the ammo, because you've dropped the LRM 20, so that's good. Maybe that's why they decided not to make the plastic. Maybe they were just like, well, who's going to play that like original mech? And then the other ones are, the other two, one's a Star League version and one's a Jihad version, and we're kind of in the post-Clannon version here, but we've not gone into the Jihad yet in terms of the Kickstarters. So that's probably why they did it. So fair cop. But yeah, I just want to be able to play the Ost-Series lance. That's all. Anyway, I'm going to leave that here because that's all I wanted to say today. Just cover all the Ost-Series mechs and discuss some of the upgrades, things like that. As I said previously, expect to see content from me as and when. I can't really do any better than that at the moment. I might just use this video for this week's video and just forget about last week, and then the week after we'll be in Kickstarter mode. Now, my intention for that is to get content out quickly. So, you know, like we'll get announcements on like tier lists and what mechs we're getting and things like that, and I might drop videos like as quickly as possible. I would usually not do that. I usually would have waited and then recorded that with DFA, but because DFA are not going to be able to record until they get back home from Adepticon, that won't happen probably for a week or two after anyway. And I think we're going to do more analysis on like from a consumer point of view, whereas I'll do it more from like the mechs and, you know, the tier lists and the swag and all that fun stuff in the first instance. So I'll leave that here. I'll thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you again next time.